Nora and I were introduced to Sarah when she came up and she was given Red Lake to work in a campaign. And as usual, we were saving money and we didn't go out and spend money for an office, so the office became the Kolmel's house office. And Sarah moved in. Sarah Campbell, young, raw, I thought, you know, student that's going to learn the ropes up here. Well, it didn't take too long to figure out that she knew the ropes already and she was teaching me something. And a couple of weeks after the election was over, we saw in the meantime that she was working, it was working for the party. It wasn't working for Sarah or for me or anybody else. She was working for the party. When she left a couple of weeks after that, it felt like it was Sarah Kolmel that left the house. You know? But that was many years ago. Now she's, I guess you could say, approaching middle age. And I'd like to introduce you to Sarah Campbell, who in the meantime, she's been working at the constituency office in Dryden, Howie. And I personally believe a lot of Howie's rubbed off on her. What I personally like about her is that inevitably she'll give you an answer to a question that you might not want to hear, but it's probably right. And nothing else to say. You can listen to her herself. I'll give you Sarah Campbell.
Thank you, Herb, for your kind words. I'd like to start off by saying thank you. I'd like to thank my supporters and my team for the hard work that they've put into my nomination. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to my husband, Josh, as well. The outpouring of support that I've received since I've made my announcement has been overwhelming, and I look forward to carrying this momentum into the fall election this fall as I represent the riding for Queen's Park. There's someone else I'd like to recognize. Growing up in my house, Howard Hampton was larger than life. It's because of what he did for our communities and the impact that he's had on countless thousands of people that I became involved in politics. It's because of Howard Hampton's leadership and perseverance that I learned that you really can make a positive difference in the lives of people. Not only that, but that giving back is the right thing to do. His actions instilled in me my commitment to the community and the notion that we prosper as individuals only when our community prospers. I consider myself to be very fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with him. It's not easy to see him go. He's been my mentor and my role model, but most importantly, he's been my friend. It's because of his encouragement that I'm here today. It's because of his faith in me that I chose to run. But more importantly, it's because of Howard Hampton that the NDP is a strong and viable party, not just in northwestern Ontario, but all across Ontario. And for that, I thank him. If there's one thing that Howard Hampton will be remembered for, it's his warnings about energy prices. Years ahead of anyone else, he recognized that creeping privatization would doom the province's energy strategy to fail, because these prices would cause all sorts of failures and lack of investment of business and the closure of many businesses. He was right about that, and he developed a plan to fix the problem. The NDP is committed to implementing this plan, which includes creating a not-for-profit, publicly owned electricity system for northwestern Ontario. An NDP government will bring in this energy strategy that works for families, keeps jobs in northern Ontario, and brings new jobs and new prosperity to our communities. An NDP government will reverse the crisis that the McGuinty Liberals and Harris Conservatives before them created in the north. There is another area where the NDP has taken the lead, and that's in forestry. There's a strong future ahead in our forest sector. That's why Andrea Horvath and the NDP have proposed real changes that will set the economic conditions necessary to see the forest industry rebound and bring jobs back to our communities. A few months ago, Bill Morrow, who's the Liberal MPP for Thunder Bay Atikokan, gave us a glimpse of what the Liberal strategy is for the North. Does anybody remember what he said a few months ago? He said that the forest industry is dead, and he said that those of us in Northern Ontario just need to accept it and we need to move to Fort McMurray with everybody else. Well, I think Bill Morrow is wrong, and I think that Dalton McGuinty is wrong, and I think the only person who's right on this issue is Andrea Horvath and the NDP team. Andrea and I both know that the forest sector isn't dead. It's been mismanaged. It's been mismanaged by Dalton McGuinty and before him Mike Harris. It's been mismanaged by successive governments whose views on the North were that there aren't that many votes up here, so who cares what we think anyway. The difference is that Andrea Horwath realizes that if you're premier, you're going to be premier for the entire province, and that the province doesn't end at Algonquin Park. The simple fact is that there is a future for Northern Ontario, in forestry, in mining, in tourism, and many other industries. We have to focus attention on the problems and find solutions. We need to talk to our municipalities, talk to our economic development experts right here in Northern Ontario, and we need to talk to the people who live in Northern Ontario to come up with a Made in the North solution. If there's one thing I can tell you, it's that Andrea Horwath and the NDP respect the North. Only Andrea Horwath has spent time visiting with community leaders, volunteers, and the public in the North. I was with her and we listened to community leaders from Sioux Lookout, Dryden, Ignis, and right here in Red Lake. We were there and we listened. We listened to representatives from the Sioux Hudson Literacy Council who provide an essential service. We learned how and heard how they have to fight for funding simply to keep their doors open. We heard from the Dryden Children's Resource Center about the challenges of offering daycare services in the North. We listened to representatives from the Mary Berglund Health Center in Ignis, and we heard how they're on the verge of cutting services and closing their doors because the province wants more rent for a facility that they're in, a facility that's falling apart at the seams. And we listened about hydro rates. Many of you know from reading over my literature that I've been involved in the Facebook-based group Join the Fight Against Hydro One Rates. When we were discussing her visit, I told Andrea about the group, which is founded in Dryden, and she insisted that we sit down not only with the founders of the group, but as many members as we could get together, and that we also sit down with concerned residents. We held a public meeting open to everyone that was frustrated with these spiraling and uncontrollable costs, and we sat down, we listened, and then we acted, because that's what New Democrats do. We listen and we fight for the change that puts families first. We'll start by taking the HST off the home heating and hydro, and we won't stop until we bring down the cost of hydro in our communities that makes our communities once again viable and competitive with other provinces and territories. Because in the North, many of you know that we produce some of the cheapest and cleanest electricity in North America, and it's high time that we paid the price that reflects that. The thing is, the man that the press calls Premier Dad in Toronto has been neglecting his duties. He's failed his responsibility to ensure that hard-working families can pay their bills and have money left over to put food on the table. He's failed to ensure that there are stable, good-paying jobs in our communities. He's failed to listen to northern communities that want to be consulted on legislation that affects us, legislation like the Far North Act. He's raised taxes during a global recession. He's raised taxes on essential goods and services like home heating, hydro, and gasoline for our vehicles. Premier Dad has been an irresponsible parent. In Ontario, we have a way of dealing with those parents who neglect their duties, and that's called the Family Responsibility Office. Well, on October 6th, Premier Dad is going to have a meeting with the Political Responsibility Office, and I'm confident that there's going to be an orange wave that's going to sweep across the province, and Premier Horwath and I are going to work hard to bring the change to Northern Ontario that we deserve. Thank you very much for your support.